Good morning and welcome back to my garden. It is April 1st and the start of garden season officially. I think of April 1st as the first day of the garden season, even though I've started plants indoors months ago because the weather is just turning. Normally, we are quickly approaching our last frost, although it certainly seems like we've had our last frost because our 10-day forecast continuously does not involve a frost. So we might have an early season this year, but things are already growing in the garden. My plants indoors are doing extremely well and are ready to go out. So there's just a lot of deliberating whether it's time to start putting things in the ground or not, and the risk that takes. But anyways, I want to take you on a quick journey around the garden to show you what I'm working with, what my plans are for the garden this year, and kind of where things are at right now. This is the garden space that I'm working with this year. And you can already see quite a lot of green and plants in here this year. It's very bright out this morning, so excuse the lighting, it's not so great. However, in this front garden bed, right now what's growing in here is a lot of leafy greens over here, tons of peas, some kale, miscellaneous kind of greens and just seed packets I wanted to chaos sow and throw in here. There's some kale in the back, and then a lot of chives and snapdragons in the back and all the kind of little corners. This bed right now is what I'm filling up with a lot of the cold, kind of tolerant plants to fill up this bed, and also I'm holding off a little bit on putting climbing beans here. This trellis, which is a large cactus, or rather a cattle panel trellis arch, will have pole beans for just regular green beans, and then also Chinese long, I guess yard long beans is what they're called, on the other side. So this will be all hanging plants by mid-summer, which is really, really awesome. It looks so cool to have a trellis full of beans, and they just produce the entire season. So that'll be this front portion here. And then underneath, where you can't see, there is some extra greens in a little garden container. There's more lettuce, the same kind here, which is the Paris Island, and then bok choy. Vertical gardening is one of my favorite ways to garden. I have a lot of raised beds, and I have multiple wall trellises, all cattle panel, which are either 8-foot panels held up sideways or pieces that we've cut out. And then I have 3 16-foot cattle panels that are bent into arches. Vertical gardening extends my growing space so much, and there are climbing or trellised varieties, which are also called indeterminate varieties, of so many things that I really, really love. And things like beans, green beans, yard long beans, anything in that kind of group takes so much less space going vertical versus a bush variety. So bush varieties of green beans can take up quite a lot of space in the garden because they're just little bushes. They're pretty sizely, but they don't last the whole season. So you either have to continuously resow new seeds to replace older plants and transition them through the season, or they just take up more space where maybe you're trying to put a pepper plant that needs a longer season to grow. So for me, I will plant some bush beans, especially in my grow tower this year. However, growing vertically, these vertical trellising beans last much longer. I pick them continuously during the season, so they continuously produce flowers and more beans, and I find them to be such a beauty in the garden mid-season. It brings a lot of joy and color because I have purple green beans, green beans, and then the yard long beans are both green and red, but they just get so enormous. They're such a showstopper in the garden. So vertical gardening for beans is really essential in my garden space because I dedicate my beds to other things that really do need the space and the full garden season to really thrive. In this center bed right here, this is located between 2 trellises. So there's a cattle panel trellis here and along the other side. And then on the end of this bed, there is a blueberry bush and 2 green stalks that are holding strawberries and herbs, which I'll go over in a second. But this garden space right here is pretty inaccessible to me throughout the season, especially when the rest of the bed that is open down here is filled with plants. So I really try to avoid walking in here or, getting into this space. So that's why this space is dedicated to be a garden or cut flower area where I don't even have to get in there to get flowers. They bring in pollinators, they bring beauty to the garden. But if I want to, all I need is a snip to grab something out of here, because a lot of these flowers will grow quite tall. So my garden space is kind of planned out in that way, where flowers are tucked into corners of beds and primarily in this very large bed area, where big, taller flowers like cosmos, zinnias, bachelor buttons, things that get to be a little bit tall, really fill in the space nicely and, bring color to the garden. Like I said, next, this end portion, which closes off that flower space, which is right behind it, has 2 green stalks, this black one, the green one, and a blueberry bush that overwintered from last year and is doing great. And I just noticed yesterday we have our first little blooms on there, which is so exciting. I'm so glad to see this bush coming back to life so quickly, because this is my second year growing blueberries. So last year it went so well and they tasted so good, and there were so many on there. Look, there's more over here. Oh, so cute. And then in this left green stalk, the black one, what I have in here are strawberry seeds from last year that stayed in here and outside all winter, no problems at all there. The bottom row here is a bunch of marigold starts. And then right above the strawberries are new started strawberries. I sort of regretted taking some of my strawberry plants out, and I did want to try bare root strawberries, just to say that I've started them from bare roots. So those are being ordered and coming soon. So these are from seed, and then I want to put the bare root ones right above and see how they do, see the speed comparison, because bare roots give you a big head start compared to seed starting strawberry plants. So that's kind of what this tower's partially empty to experiment with. There are some seeds in here for lettuce that probably won't come up in time or will need to get ripped out when those strawberries finally arrive. And then the top row, there's a couple empty pockets. However, some have calendula or little snapdragon plants, itty bitties, to add some color and attract more pollinators. Then on this green stalk, which is a bigger pocket size compared to this one, you can see they're smaller here and larger here. This holds all of my herbs, or a chunk of them that I'm growing this year. So what's mainly, and then the top is also flowers. I'll always add flowers to my green stalks. Cilantro, chives, dill, a few pockets of lettuce that I had extra of. And then at the top is calendula, there's a kale, marigolds, bachelor button, and some basil as well down here. That's a beautiful purple basil. Got a little damage from some cold, but I think she'll bounce back with no problem at all. Growing in green stalks is so cool because in just a small little amount of space, so it's just one about a 2 foot by 2 foot space, I am growing so many plants that are going to get so large. I can fit so many more strawberry plants, and bugs are not getting to these as easily because they're so high up. They're so fast to water. I really, really love these towers, and they add such a cool pop of color with the plastic. They're just really cool, easy, low commitment, a little bit of maintenance in terms of feeding and watering because they do dry out faster because they're raised containers. But man, these are the coolest. And I liked it so much I got a third one this year, which is currently empty. I put a couple seeds of beans in there. yesterday, so a couple pockets. I didn't even label them because they will pop up so fast, and I'm not planning on filling these at all because I have a couple plants that are starting inside, like dwarf tomatoes, that I'd like to fill up some of these pockets up here and test how I like those. But this one is brand new, this blue one, so it's joining the family of green stalks. And this one I want to dedicate, so that's herbs over there, strawberries and flowers over there, and then this one I want to be food, so tomatoes, bush beans that I don't want to take up very high in demand bed space like I did last year. So this will be food primarily, and I might want to do an experiment or two with some trellising, but we'll really see how that all kind of pans out. Right now I don't love the location of this, and it's like up against the house, and I know I'm gonna have to turn it to get the other side more sun, which maybe will work out just fine. I like it because it's out of the way, but I'm worried that maybe it won't get hit with enough sun, but we'll see. It might be just fine. Okay, we hit that bed, the flower bed. So right here at the other side of this trellis, I want to go over this hot mess of a garden bed. So I call this my hot mess bed because this is where I just throw things that are bullies in the garden. So at the end closest to you is lemon balm that just popped back up. There's also a chamomile plant which will get huge and reseed and come back every year, I'm hoping. There's a lavender plant here. I really didn't know what else to do, where else to put it, and I think here with all the other flowers it should do fine. I think eventually it might get bullied out of this garden bed because lemon balm and chamomile really can just take up all the root space and take all the nutrition. We'll see though. At this end there's some chives, calendula, a couple little bunches of flowers. Last year I had a really large snapdragon flower that came up right here, and it looks like it's starting to come back. I'm seeing some flowers or some leaves popping out of that soil where it was last year, so that's really good to see again. And then along this trellis right here, which is another arch trellis going towards that center area where the flowers were, there's a lot of magnolia and tall telephone peas that will grow up the trellis. They should get to be about 6 to 7 feet in length in total. So this will very quickly, and now that they are just getting tall enough to hit this first rung, they are going to jump up in absolute no time, and this will be growing 6 inches every 2 days at least. It seems like they grow absurdly fast once they can connect to the trellis. So this will quickly, very quickly, come into bloom, fill up quite quickly, and then we'll kind of see how it transitions throughout this season. Overall, the vibe of the hot mess bed is things that come back every year, the bullies, the large bush plants, and things that smell good and look pretty. So I think by mid-summer, this will likely end up looking like really large bushes, lots of flowers, and then I'd like to replace these pea and things that were growing on this trellis with vining flowers in particular, so that up against the house, and the first thing you see when you walk off of our driveway and into the garden space is very beautiful flowers that are vining up over this trellis. This garden bed right here next to the hot mess bed is 4 things. This I believe is a tarragon plant. It's either that or summer savory, but this comes back every year and it's already jumping out of the soil. There's so much growth that happened just in the last week, so I imagine this is going to be overflowing the edge of this bed all season. Then here is garlic. This I believe is my soft neck garlic, and in my other bed down at the end is hard neck. I believe that's the difference between the two, and I don't remember the name of this one. But these are doing quite well. Some of them are planted a little close to each other, so I'm a little concerned about the bulb size that I'll get this year, but garlic is a total experiment and new thing for me, so I'll be thrilled with any type of harvest I get from these. Then along the trellis, another arch trellis, which is right here on the back, There's pea plants that are just starting to come out of the soil, which is really exciting. And then at the end of the bed, which I'll show you right now, is something called walking onions. This is the walking onion. So it should be creating bulbs down at the bottom and will reseed itself using the flowers and the seeds at the top, drop its head into the soil and reseed and create another one. So it's kind of an infinite supply of small onions is my understanding. And once this garlic is out over here, I am going to let this walking onion take over this space, I believe. Because one, it's beautiful. I imagine the flowers will be kind of nice to look at as well, maybe. And I'd like this to really have the space it needs. I think it'll be contained enough where it's kind of in this bed. I have plenty of space where maybe it's a really good source of regular returning food and something I could harvest often. So this is new, but man, is it doing so well and just looks beautiful. It's large. Moving on. This bed is on the edge of the garden. There's the rest of it. And this is primarily where a lot of my red onions are. And again, this is new for me, and I think I started the seeds of the red onions way too late. So whatever happens here, I'm thrilled with, but it'll be a learning curve on onions for me for sure. I believe they should be much bigger at this point. There's more peas because early season screams pea season for me. That's just what I think of as early spring is we have snap peas all day, every day. They're garden snacks. They're so rewarding and so good. Then we have some greens at the end and cosmos to kind of whack your legs while you walk into the garden. Nothing says welcome to my garden like being whacked in the legs by flowers that I tucked into the corner of my bed. So that's kind of the vibe that I'm trying to do. Overflowing beds, lots of flowers. So nothing too exciting here. Typically by the end of the season, this bed is also used for okra, which gets really large, hence the trellis right there. Kind of use those to give them some support. But this is a bed I'd really like to establish something more permanent or kind of a theme here rather than this is just kind of the extra bed that I have. So TBD on this bed. I think next year I'd like to do something a little different here. Next, I have two goji berry plants that are doing quite well. I really neglect those two plants in felt containers, but they do well every year. And I don't really like the taste of goji, but I will sometimes freeze them and put them into smoothies and just kind of use them every once in a while. This giant bed here next to it is fully empty on this end at least, except for some peas that are coming up along the trellis, again filling this space. For this garden season, this will be the start of the peppers. And I think I want to put, because I'm really only using half this bed, some of my super hot peppers in this space, so they're all contained in one area. So I think that's how I want to use this corner. And then down there is my next set of garlic. And those I believe are the hardneck. And they are looking so much larger than the other garlic. They're doing fantastic down there. They're getting tons of sun, which is good. And I've been fertilizing and watering every so often. And they just got a good water yesterday because it rained overnight. But look how pretty they are. Now this center bed is huge, and that's the end where all the flowers go, which is kind of inaccessible. As you can see, there's a trellis there, and then the end is has the green stalks and the blueberry bush. So right where you can almost see the line already forming, that line of where flowers end and the ends of the trellis are, the rest of this space is completely dedicated to peppers. And this year I started, while I narrowed down the varieties of peppers that I'm growing, I have a lot more plants maybe than even last year, which was quite a lot. But I have a lot of duplicates of the same varieties. I think I'm growing about 15 types of peppers this year. I'd have to recount at this point. So right now there's a couple peas on this trellis, and then probably a melon plant that lost its tag. So I just stuck that in there because if I don't know what it is and another frost hits us and it dies, that's fine because I don't know what it is. But if it grows well, great. I'm happy to keep it there. But this space will have about 1, 2, 3 pepper plants across and multiple rows all the way down. That's how I did it last year, and then fit in 4 where I could and just kind of puzzle pieced this space together. It gets very, very dense with peppers though. So the spaces that are dedicated to peppers are this bed, the bed right behind me, all these rows here of containers that are mostly full right now of compost. And then, because I think I'm gonna want more space, I built a new bed this year at the back. And I think I'm probably gonna have enough peppers where I'm gonna need this for more pepper plants. So I wanna be able to group my peppers and keep them intentionally separated. My toddler really likes this bed and playing in this bed in particular, so I'm thinking I'm going to put all of my bell peppers and sweet peppers in this space. Knowing he already kind of gravitates towards this bed a lot, I think that's my safest bet. Make sure he doesn't eat a spicy pepper by accident. So as you can see, I have a lot of beds. I have one more I want to cover, but I have a lot of raised garden beds and then a lot of felt and plastic containers in my garden spaces. I filled this garden to the brim. While it's already a large space to grow in, the walkways are large enough for me to get my my wagon that I use for soil and, mixing things and bringing materials in. But also wide enough where I still have space to put more plants that give those plants less competition because they're in their own containers. So my pepper plants that I really want to thrive, I will put here so they just get fed and fertilized a little bit more frequently, get a little special attention here. So by the middle of the summer, these whole walkways are kind of filled with containers. Okay, lastly, this bed and this herb bed, which kind of go hand in hand. I will do a lot of companion planting with these two here. This little herb bed is wood from pallets and my first garden bed that I ever had, which was, I think, a cedar bed that was pretty cheap from a big box store, and the wood is not doing well. It's starting to fall apart. I'm going to try to reinforce it this year and keep it all together, but I think it's kind of my first DIY garden bed situation, so I'd like to reinforce it and keep it just for memories. But right now there's a lot of chives in here. There's some flowers. These are lettuce plants here. A lot of oregano is coming back this year, and that's right there, which I'm so excited about. I really, really want more oregano. Last year, that was my favorite herb. Every year I kind of gravitate towards something different. The year before was basil. I grew a ridiculous amount of mason jars of dried basil. Last year was oregano, but I'm very excited to see that plant in particular come back because it just is such a gorgeous plant kind of spilling out into the walkway. And then in the bed behind it is where I grow all of my tomatoes. So this wall trellis will be the support for all of my indeterminate tomato plants. So where I'm kind of what I'm trying to figure out this year is all my indeterminate, my big slicers, which would be my Black Beauty, my pineapple, I have Dr. Witchy's, and then a couple types of cherry tomatoes that are indeterminate and get very, very tall. I think those will all be in this bed. I used this for tomatoes last year and it did really, really well. And then along the edge, I'm going to be planting marigolds, which there's already a couple in here, and basil plants. So there's already a couple flowers that are starting to bloom, which I'm so excited about. Calendula, marigolds. There's other marigolds and chives down there. So I'll put a couple basil plants in between and it'll fill out and do a nice wall kind of situation here. Then along the back here, the tomatoes would be about 1.5 feet apart, and we'll do 1 or 2 major stems of each tomato plant growing up here and prune pretty heavily, and that's done really well in the past. So that's what the garden is looking like right now on April 1st. We have 3 green stalks, about 8 big beds, about 6 smallish kind of beds here, and then countless smaller containers that will fill out this whole space. And I think it's looking really great already. We have an early season this year. Like I was saying, things are already starting to bloom and get large. Seeds are really coming up out of the ground quickly. So I think we're gonna have an extra 3 to 4 weeks in the growing season this year. So I'm very excited about it. And I can't wait to show you in a couple weeks and see where we're at with the plants that are here. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.